In last year's the gaming industry hit a record $206 billion in revenue. Thousands of developers did not receive bonuses. They received layoff notices, cancelled projects and polished emails explaining why their jobs had vanished. Newzoo says worldwide gaming revenue rose 9.1%, reaching the highest total the company has ever recorded. Meanwhile, workers entered 2026 wondering whether the next management email would erase years of experience. Simply put, gaming is not running out of customers, sales, or new ways to charge those customers. Instead, publishers are running out of people they still feel like paying. Soon, the numbers lead to what corporations care about most, the profit margin. Publishers describe layoffs with soft phrases like restructuring, difficult conditions, and painful choices. Yet Newzoo found growth across mobile, PC, console, full games, and subscriptions. PC gaming reached $43.6 billion before console and mobile revenue entered the picture. Console revenue reached $44.7 billion, climbing 2.8% after a weaker year. Mobile revenue hit $113.3 billion, up 10.7%. Basically every major platform helped create a record year, but workers still heard that money was scarce. Some companies made terrible bets, delayed projects, bought expensive studios, or released games nobody wanted. Still, publishers earn 9% more than it did last year's. Calling the entire industry dead helps management present chosen cuts as unavoidable. Therefore, the honest headline is not that gaming collapsed. Management calls these layoffs necessary, but later we will see why they are calculated. Actually, the strategy changes which games get funded, which studios survive, and what players receive. It is a mountain of cash, but here is the catch. That mountain is not shared equally. Mobile is carrying the giant money sack. Phones produced more than half of gaming revenue, so that huge total needs proper explanation. Much of the growth came from mobile spending, mini games, direct sales, and giants such as Tencent. Tencent can move the global number without helping a smaller studio making one premium game. This means your favorite single-player developer did not receive a suitcase marked $200 billion. One customer buying his 14th glowing sword on a phone still helped push the market over the line. Bosses cannot celebrate booming numbers, then call gaming hopeless when workers ask about security. We have to look at two things at once. The market grew, but the money did not reach everyone evenly. Ordinary players do not see that distinction when prices rise, because the money leaves their accounts every month anyway. Another change is that publishers sell currency, subscriptions, and items straight to players. Selling directly lets companies cut out the middleman and keep more of the cash for themselves. Even traditional gaming asks people to pay more upfront, inside games, and through monthly services. Despite mobile carrying the money sack, cash will not stop a chief executive cutting staff to clean the spreadsheet. Gamers can blame phone games, but the industry reaches into every wallet on every platform. More importantly, the money exists, but firing staff often follows a gamble that went wrong. Players paid more for almost everything. Players spent 25% more on full PC games and 8.1% more on full console games. Membership revenue from console subscriptions rose 10.2%. Price increases and customers moving into more expensive plans partly created that growth. Computer microtransaction revenue also climbed 9.1%. On the other hand, console in-game spending fell 4.6% as Fortnite and Call of Duty engagement weakened. Importantly, that decline belongs in the breakdown because pretending every category grew would be dishonest. Remember this: when the numbers blur, you pay more, while game workers see less. Behind every percentage sits a purchase, subscription renewal, or small charge that publishers expect people to accept again. Somehow, every extra charge funds the future, while every salary becomes a burden. Customers hear that rising prices support bigger games, better technology, and longer development. Veteran developers then discover that experience offers little protection when quarterly targets arrive. So if players pay more, why are those billions not enough to keep studios open? To find the answer, look past revenue and into management's favorite shield: profit. Revenue is not profit. But that excuse only goes so far. Corporate management's favorite defense says revenue is not profit, and that part is completely true. Before volunteer accountants arrive, huge sales do not mean every dollar became profit. Development, marketing, store fees, hardware, and failed projects all cost money. Large games may employ hundreds of people for years before earning a single dollar. Wait, before thinking I defend publishers, look at what they protect when things get tough. Several releases can miss targets and lose millions after advertising, delays, and cancelled work. Honesty means admitting those costs without treating layoffs as the answer to everything. Clearly, making games is expensive, but a $200 billion industry is not a charity case. Nobody argues every studio is healthy, but healthy companies are also cutting teams before those teams fail. Cuts no longer happen only after obvious commercial disasters. Successful teams, experienced workers, support departments, and respected studios have all been hit. Oddly, revenue becomes meaningless when workers ask for security, then essential when executives address shareholders. Likewise, executive pay and investor promises survive reviews that discover too many testers, artists, and programmers. Profit is the real fight, and management improves it quickly by removing workers. Since revenue is not the whole problem, we have to examine what corporations protect first: the margin. The real product is a better profit margin. Staff remain one of the easiest large expenses to erase from a spreadsheet. Cutting hundreds of jobs lowers costs immediately, while creating a successful game can take 5 years and still fail. S&P Global reported that publishers cut staff to protect profits after the pandemic boom. Delayed games, weaker testing, and exhausted survivors appear after executives praise their own discipline. Remaining workers inherit unfinished tasks, tighter deadlines, and demands to produce more with less. Making a good game is difficult. Deleting 600 names from payroll can be finished before lunch. Boardrooms call this efficiency because trading future skill for short-term numbers sounds worse. Executives get their bonuses now, while the studio falls apart much later. Investors see lower costs today, while players discover broken systems tomorrow. Because the savings appear immediately, management can claim victory long before the damage becomes obvious. Quarterly targets reward immediate savings, so removing jobs looks safer than investing in work that may pay off years later. They expanded recklessly, then sent workers the bill during the pandemic. Gaming activity jumped, borrowing was cheaper, and companies hired aggressively. Corporations bought studios, approved giant projects, and promised endless expansion. Managers acted like the pandemic's massive growth would never end. Once growth slowed, the people approving those plans rarely volunteered to leave. Developers who followed management orders suddenly became the supposed problem. Crucially, developers followed plans created above them. They did not approve mergers or promise impossible growth. Employees did not create the buying frenzy, impossible schedules, or endless online stores. Then executives ordered the whole buffet, ate 3 bites, blamed the kitchen, and fired the waiter. Conveniently, companies call layoffs corrections without naming who created the mistake. Upstairs bosses keep the rewards, while workers below take the fall. Leaders gambled on permanent demand, lost, and mailed workers the bill. Translated into normal language, management cleans up its own disaster with somebody else's livelihood. Fewer studios, fewer risks. More familiar franchises. Layoffs remove more than salaries because they also remove projects, knowledge, mentors, and room for unusual ideas. Studio closures and cancellations reduce the projects major publishers will fund. Money gathers around proven franchises, subscriptions, licensed brands, and products selling extras for years. Medium-sized games become harder to approve because executives demand blockbuster returns from nearly every budget. Experimental pitches struggle because a familiar sequel looks safer inside a meeting. Worse, fewer workers means fewer chances for new smaller ideas to survive when executives fear anything unfamiliar. Ironically, publishers call games risky, then spend years building another failed live service shooter. Sequels and remakes are not automatically bad, but constant defensive copying creates fewer surprises. Consumers notice when every menu has a store, every roadmap promises seasons, and every famous series returns. Safe corporate planning then produces a strange result: bigger budgets, fewer ideas, and more expensive failures. Predictably, players receive the same structure, the same store, the same roadmap, and a different logo. The developers are leaving the building. Those workers are more than numbers on a graph. GDC's 2026 survey found 28% of respondents were laid off within 2 years. Among workers in the United States, the figure reached 33%. 2/3 of AAA respondents said their current or latest employer had carried out layoffs. This matters, because that does not mean 2/3 of all laid-off workers came from AAA companies. Skill Search found 44% of surveyed developers considered leaving because of instability. Beyond individual cuts, repeated layoffs show that loyalty and success offer no reliable protection. Talented artists, programmers, designers, testers, producers, and writers cannot build stable lives around surprise dismissals. Future recruits will hesitate before joining companies that praise passion but treat jobs as temporary. No spreadsheet shows lost trust when a veteran leaves, takes years of knowledge, and warns younger workers away. Gradually, experienced people move elsewhere, where planning a future feels possible. Recruiters spent decades asking how to attract skilled developers. Finally, management found the answer: frighten the existing ones into changing careers. Gaming is growing. Employment is being shrunk on purpose. Forget the lazy claim that gaming itself is dying. By 2028, Newzoo expects about $234.4 billion. Forecasts can change, but the current direction does not resemble extinction. Fundamentally, the crisis is about who gets protected when companies start cutting. Owners protect famous brands, recurring payments, executive jobs, investor confidence, and profit levels whenever possible. Today, workers receive temporary contracts, cancelled projects, heavier workloads, and excuses for management's mess. Modern leadership treats layoffs as another tool for cleaning numbers after bad bets. Eventually, this cycle weakens the products companies claim to protect, because exhausted teams cannot replace years of experience overnight. Ultimately, games sell, the market grows, and workers are still told they cost too much. Such a system is not an industry collapse. Welcome to the business model.